Britain Group. Well, joining me now from the other side of the argument is Will Straw, the Executive Director of Britain Stronger in Europe. Very good morning to you, Mr. Straw.
Good morning.
Now, do you actually support what the Prime Minister is asking for? Or do you think he doesn't even need to ask that?
No, we do support what he's doing. It's absolutely clear that the EU isn't perfect and we need to get a good reform package. But our view is that the benefits of EU membership outweigh the costs. And I was in Cardiff earlier this week. I visited Waterloo tea houses, as well as making a good cup of coffee. They also import-export. And they say that it's the paperwork when they want to export outside the EU is so much more complicated than inside the EU. That's one of the reasons why our trading relationship with the EU is so important, because it keeps prices down, it makes life simpler for business, and I think we want to see that. We want to maintain that.
So, I mean, you're saying it's important, but what you are also saying is that it's a reverse version of the question I asked Steve Baker. Your mind is already made up whether the Prime Minister was negotiating or not.
It is, yes. We think that as things stand at the moment, the benefits of EU membership, the benefits in terms of all the jobs that are created from our trading with the EU, the low prices, the workers' rights that have been hard fought for people right across the EU, give people paid holidays, maternity and paternity leave, those things outweigh the costs, the net contribution that we make as a member of the EU, as well as Britain being made safer and having a greater standing in the world from our EU membership.
But there is potentially a referendum to win for you in perhaps 6 months' time. And the key issue, the one that stands out, is the Prime Minister's suggestion that there be a ban on benefits for 4 years for EU migrants to this country. It doesn't look like he'll get it. If he doesn't get that, would that be a huge blow to your campaign?
Well, I think it's a bit soon to prejudge what the outcome of the renegotiation will be. They obviously had some very detailed talks just last week, and they're going to have another go in February. So let's see what comes out. Of course, we want to see this. It was something that was important actually to both parties in the general election, had similar policies calling for restrictions to in-work benefits for new arrivals into this country. And that's the kind of thing I think that people would like to see. But if it didn't happen at all, would the benefits of EU membership still outweigh the costs? And in our view, they would, and it would be right for Britain to stay in. Indeed, we'd be cutting our nose to spite our face if we left, if we then led to higher prices, job losses, and so on from coming out. So I think the arguments for staying in are quite clear.
But I mean, there's another argument, and it's funny the way all sides of this debate cross over. There's another argument coming from the Eurosceptic side that, well, didn't the Chancellor really shoot this ultimately in the foot in his July budget when he announced the increase in the national minimum wage up to £9 eventually, and economists saying, well, that will be the new pull factor. That will be the one that will attract low-paid EU migrants to the UK.
Well, I think it's a good policy for people right around the country. I'm someone who's campaigned for many years to see wages increase. It's a good thing. But I think most people, there are concerns, of course, about immigration. But I think most people hold the view that if people come here, work hard, pay the taxes and play by the rules, they should be given a fair crack of the whip. What we've got to cut down on is people who have come here and taking liberties. And having stood in the general election, I had many, many conversations with people who did have concerns about immigration. But when you put it in those terms, they agreed and they recognised the contribution that immigrants make to the health service.
There are hard-working migrants from the European Union who come here and take perfectly legal jobs. But as we saw from a report last week, and I remember discussing it with your then leader Ed Miliband, and it was a key part as a candidate in that election, saying that this form of migration did drive wages down. That's a key part of your analysis, and we got that backed up last week, that at the lower end of the pay scale, it does have a depressing effect on salaries.
Well, I think, as we've said, if we can do something to ensure that people who first come to the country here don't get the in-work benefits, then that's a positive step. But let's be clear about what's on the ballot paper in this referendum. What is it the Leave campaigners are actually saying? Are they saying they want to end free movement altogether? I know that some have said that. What would the consequences of that be? It's quite clear that that would mean that we wouldn't have access to the free market, single market of 500 million consumers. There's no country in the world that has the same access to the single market that we get at the moment without accepting the rules and regulations, including free movement. Countries like Norway and Switzerland, which are not members of the EU but do have access to the single market, have a greater rate of immigration to their countries than we do in the UK. So let's be really clear about what it is that we are asking for in this referendum, and let's be clear that if we did end free movement, there will be very serious consequences, not just for the economy, but also for Brits working, studying and travelling abroad. There'll be consequences as well.
What, you think their benefits would be withdrawal?
Well, why, if we were restricting...
There'd be retaliation.
Well, first of all, if we were saying that everybody from Europe had to get a visa to come here, I think we would face the same thing. That's not to say we'd be prevented from going to Europe, but young people looking to work, travel or study abroad would find it much more complicated, as it is if you want to go to America or China. Similarly, Brits, we've got 2 million Brits living right across Europe. What happens to them? If we start saying to people who come here, you can't get access to public services, maybe they'll find that if they fall ill, they don't get access to the healthcare system without paying for it. So there are lots of consequences from this.
And your attitude to your campaign, who can join you in campaign with you? Is it come one, come all? You would say to all the major parties, you've got to let your MPs free to campaign how they feel.
Well, what we have in our campaign is people from across the political spectrum, both our political champions in Westminster and councillors around the country, but also the people working in the core campaign team. We've got people working from all party backgrounds and none, and we want to welcome people from all different political persuasions.
But you didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.